Empezamos.
All right, we start now. Okay. So my name is Francisco Rodríguez. I introduce myself for those of you present here and those of you following me from your home. And my name is Francisco Jesús Rodríguez, and I've been asked to talk about honeypots, which are Trump sensors. Okay, so today I will give an introduction as to honeypots. I'll tell you what they are for, the different types, as well as the information that we gather through honeypots, and then I will talk about HoneyStation, which is a proof of concept that I've been developing for 1 year now, because I had a personal need to visualize all the information that I was gathering through sensors, and I wanted to display it on a screen as in the same manner that as I was seeing it in my mind. And now, later on, I will finish off with some real cases. So if you like, let us start with the definition of honeypot. I will read out. Honeypot is a resource that simulates or pretends to be a real objective that is waiting to be attacked or compromised. The main objective is to distract attackers and to obtain information about the attack and the attacker. So could be a real machine, or I don't know, a Raspberry Pi that we can buy on the internet. So what is the purpose of using these sensors? First of all, we have them there on a deliberate manner we want to expose it to the attacker. We want to distract the attacker, because as long as the attacker is focusing on our device, would not focus on other ones. Okay, so we want to get information, as much as possible information from the attacker. We'll refer to these elements in greater detail later on. Another purpose is to obtain attack trends. So for us to find out the type of honeypots that we want to deploy. Well, sometimes we may want to deploy a sensor on a port that is being often attacked. We also want to detect malware or malicious campaigns. Sometimes these campaigns appear and they stay there for quite some time, and eventually they disappear. But some campaigns, malware campaigns, are more prevailing than others. And then learning as much as possible from the attacker, from the attack, from everything. Then also we want to detect new vulnerabilities. And then malware. Well, malware ranging from executable files, and what is most interesting of all that is that many of these are not detected by antiviruses. So we want to do both dynamic and static analysis to find out what is happening. And last, supplementing other security solutions. They coexist perfectly all right with firewalls and other type of security solutions. In terms of consideration, this is not a system in production, and no one should try to communicate with it. So if no one knows that a sensor is there, so nothing should reach to it. However, this does not happen in practice. And you will see that we will always be receiving some kinds of security events. Any traffic aimed at a honeypot is considered suspicious, whether it is an attack or just a survey. And any traffic that comes out of our honeypots would mean that our system has been compromised. Sometimes attackers, the first thing that they check out is whether there is an external connectivity, or sometimes malware tries to download another sample, and that's when the alarms are triggered. Avoiding any potential attack to any other equipment or to third party. We have to be very careful with that, because if we are another equipment in our infrastructure may be attacked as well as ours. Many times I'm asked, how long does it take since the moment you take a sensor up until you receive an attack or a survey. So this sensor has been placed in a residential DMZ, for instance, those that any of us have at home. I'll show you how long it takes to receive an attack. So on top you see the time at 9:30 in the morning, number of events, ports that are open, and that's our patch that will tell us when the attack takes place. Minute has gone by. So taking shorter or longer depends on where you place your honeypots. In some countries may take longer than others. Depends. So 2 minutes have gone by. We are waiting. We haven't received any attacks. Where do you think the first security event will come from? From which country? I mean, yeah, from over there. All right, so hold on, minute 34. So the patch will warn us, will tell us that we are about the first event. There we go. It tells us that an attack has been made from that IP to port 23 from China. If we were to wait for a few more minutes, we'll see how many events we get. Few minutes later, we have 89 security events, so several ports and several countries there. If we were to leave there for a few hours so we wait, final number of events. So the patch cannot put up with so much pressure because it received 2,144 events in only 3 hours. So port 23, port 22, port 80, a bit of everything, coming from China, Bosnia, the US, Germany, Spain, Brazil, Taiwan, Korea, Morocco, Turkey. And this is so all the time. If we had waited for 1 more hour, the number would just have skyrocketed. So as you can see on the screen, well, they all come from a few IP addresses. So how do we classify honeypots? First of all, because of the usage. They may be production or research ones. Often the production ones are related with the sensors that we have in our internal network. And the research ones are those that are installed outside, whether it is a DMZ or UPS. So the aim of the production ones is to prevent and detect and respond to attacks, to protect the organization, and to warn the administrators about something going on. So those attacks may come from infected equipment or, why not, from users of our network, legitimate users that are doing some kind of activity that should not be doing. So regarding research honeypots, the objective is to learn as much as possible and to retain the intruder as much as possible, to learn as much as possible. And then in terms of interaction refers to the number of options that we will, actions that we will let our attacker do. So the higher interaction, the higher the risk, but also the higher amount of information that we will get. Low interaction, here we simulate services or operating systems, limiting activity, and here the risk is a low risk, it is easy to install and to maintain, and also very easy to detect by an expert user. Medium interaction, higher risk, and then we obtain higher samples of information, and then high ones. High one may be physical or real or virtual, so the risk will also be high. And however, what's important here is to remember that we have to monitor that all the time so that we prevent other equipment in our infrastructure from being also attacked. Whenever we have a high interaction honeypots, we really need to do a forensic analysis in order to find out all the attacks that we have received. That requires quite some time, and then it is also high maintenance and highly costly. So in terms of implementation, could either be physical or virtual. We can then, in terms of role, Well, we have the clients. That means that we go and search for our attacker. We have JAS or JAL tools doing that for us, or the server, which is what I just shown you. And regarding location, those of us who have, well, some of us have an internal network and others have a network that publishes information out, DMZ, etc. Advantages: protection of our system, preventing attacks, minimum resources. So as I said, you can just install it in a Raspberry and we can set it up in another network to find out what is happening there, minimum false positives. So detection of internal and external attacks, and produces little information but valuable information. But there are also downsides to it. So no contribution if they are not attacked. No matter how many probes we have or sensors, if they are not attacked, we get nothing from that. Then limited vision. Honeypot only detects activity whenever the honeypot is attacked, but does not detect any activity in equipment around. Higher interaction, higher risk than other tools that may detect it. We have tools for Corridagnia that can detect that it is a sensor. There is also some metasploit, fingerprinting as well. Fingerprinting could help us detect some of the behaviors of the sensor, and well, whereby we know that it is a honey. And regarding fingerprinting, I recommend that you listen to the Black Hat presentation telling you how to detect the honeypots that we may find on the internet. And then services, when we enter our IP address and then where we find out or tells us whether it is a honeypot or not. So what makes us be suspicious? Well, or actually the attacker. So little or low activity in the system, many ports are open, or perhaps the combinations are not realistic. We should always remember that the ports that we install should be as close as possible to a real system. So software by default, you know, some sensors have some files, some roots that are easy to detect, okay? OS by default, especially those of high interaction. For instance, Windows with no patches whatsoever, it make the attacker suspect that that's not what he's expecting. Little software installed, and last, very appealing files and folders within the sensors. Who are the users of our sensor? So this is a real demo. Okay, so we have a user introducing commands. First of all, lots of attacks have been received from compromised equipment. So in the last campaign, we had many routers attacking devices through port 23, and probably legitimate users of the routers don't even know that their devices are launching attacks everywhere. So script kiddies, that is to say less knowledgeable users, when they go into honeypot, they start to try to do everything to execute the malware, and sometimes they go a bit crazy because the actual honey is not responding as they are expecting it to respond, and then, well, humorous situations arise. Then cyber crimers, so cyber attackers with advanced knowledge, researchers that launch the servers on the internet in an effort to look for vulnerabilities. All that is logged or registered in our sensor, and then crawler, BOG, that more often than not visit port 80, and last, attackers with little clear intentions. Some of them do brute force attacks and then they leave. Others just insert some commands and leave. So there is a bit of everything. So we want all the time to analyze all that to find out about the intention of the attackers. Even if we can find and commercial solutions. These are free tools that you may get if you are interested in that. You may have Honey Drive or distribution HD, ADHD, and then a number of sensors that may regulate some services, such as tipo for port 22 or Amun for 435 port. So there is a bit of everything. These are tools available to you. This is a link to GitHub. So here there is a wide range of resources related to this. And those of you who like programming, you have the Twisted library. Now the second point. This is about information. So that is to say, the information that we get through our sensors. First of all, the trends. So here this helps me decide on the sensor that I need to install on the internet. So we take the sensor, we just install it on the internet, and then I monitor all the TCP ports. I could also do it with other ports, but I decided to use the TCP ports, and this is what I get. So there are a number of IP numbers or addresses that are in several ports. Port 23, 1900, port 22. And as I say, this helped us determine or decide on the sensors that we want to install. So what do we get from here? All that information on the screen. So from the IP address, the first thing that we will get is the RIR, then the continent, then the coordinates, more or less precise depending on the database that we use, the country, the city, the ASN, that could be our provider, and the organization. If you are in a local network, we can also get the MAC number as well as the manufacturer, then the date, the port, and we can also carry out an active analysis of the attacker or suspected attacker, and then we can analyze the port, the services, and the operating system. Once we have the IP addresses, we cross that out with public reputation lists. There are many resources available on the internet for that. Then I use that with the information that my honeypot generates for me. I really want to find out whether that IP address visited my sensor. Before, we can also compare it against HoneyDB virus total. In Twitter there are users that are all the time publishing the information that they get from in their honeypots. We can also compare it with ours. We can also with proxy list and proxy socks ones. And then exit node Tor. Many attackers use Tor to hide their address and to attack the honeypot. And that information is also registered. And then private lists. Nearly all of them are pay lists, where they give you an IP address, they tell you whether it is a botnet one or what category that IP address is. Once we know the honeypot that we want to install, then we would allow a connection to take place. Information about attacks. As I say, the moment we install a sensor, we open up a port for a given service. And we don't only obtain all the information that I told you before, and then we also get information from communication. First of all, the OS from passive fingerprinting, the commands that are executed, the actions that are carried out, the exploits that have been used, if any. And then we could also mount an IDS before the honeypots with sensors such as Snort or any other, and it would tell us, they would tell us the type of attack that is being done with us. If we deploy a honey web, we could also do that. Now, deployment, high level one. We would deploy honeypots in several countries internet providers, university, industrial control system, public institutions, and then we will centralize information. All the information gathered in the probe or the sensor will be sent out to a central location for analysis, consultation, and visualization. And actually, visualization I was very interested in. Therefore, I started to develop HoneyStation. But before that, I looked for some inspiration on the internet. These maps, I'm sure that you know about the North map. So every time cyber wars, cyber attacks is mentioned on TV, they deploy this map. Okay, we have another one for Kaspersky, Honey Project, Believe, and also the third map. And from there, I started to develop HoneyStation. In the beginning, it was a proof of concept, and this is what it ended up being. So this is the work that I've done in the last year. There are 5 panels here. One of them is the view of the actual honeypot, and the other 2 from the viewpoint of the country and from the city. So this is about the attack trends, and this is another map about malware and location of the malware. Let me tell you that these projects have been supported by INCIBE, and it will be included within a group of tools that will be made available for the law enforcement agencies for detection of cyber attacks, national cyber attacks. All right, I will explain each of these panels to you. First panel, honeypot view. On the one hand, we have the countries, then ISN, and then IP addresses. Those in red are those that have some information about whether they are in a public or private list. And then in the last column, we have the port, and then the actual honey. As you can see, nearly all of them are in red, at least at that point in time. Then I filtered them by US, so these are all the IP addresses. So data about DNS, that's ongoing all the time, every day. So here you will see the information that I can get. So reputation list, then the rules, the commands, and the OS. So this time I had 2 operating systems. So we have a filter for China. That's the result. Well, China is number 1, as you may guess. Next view is about all the lists. So now I have 30 reputation lists. This is the command that has been executed, and then IP address, and this is the file that will be downloaded to infect our machine. Next view. So real-time attacks. Because the honey is in Spain, all attacks are targeted to Spain. So nearly 11,000 attacks, and 17,000 of them came from the actual country. So we have the top countries, top ports, top DNS, real-time attacks, IP address, ports, and last we have IP reputation, whether they are included in any list or any IDS files. Here we will get that kind of information. Next view will offer the same information but at the level of city. So to narrow that information. All right, trends now. So this is what I mentioned before about trends. This helps me decide on the sensors that I want to deploy. So continent, ports, organization, and ASL. And this is a real-time blog as to what is happening in log. And here on the right we have the tweets that I mentioned before. So this generates another list that I use for comparison purposes. And here the map tells me about the origin of those trends. And we have the last one, which is the Malware View, where we have the operating system of the attacker, type of malware. So IP addresses. So it's not rules that are being jumped or breached. But as the title of my presentation said, real-time attack, and this is a video. So if you like, now I'd like to share with you attacks real-time. So hopefully the network will not fail. See if we are successful. So that's up to date. So many white addresses, so they are not in any reputation list, only a few of them are on those reputation lists. So a bit of everything in there. China. So attacks to 135, SSH, 23, HTTP, SQL, a bit of everything. These are all the attacks that port 22 received today. So, for instance, here we have the Century Fox one. So we match that against a reputation list, a store rule, and then told us about the operating system, and then it tells us that it's Linux. And we could do that with any other country, the US, which is also highly active. Possibly at 12 o'clock at night, we cannot really see the map, okay, because very many security events are generated during the day. So here real-time attacks. So at this point in time from Poland, Ireland, Hungary, and that goes on and on and on, never stops. So reputation list, we have a few of them. For instance, this one from France that is matching that against the list that I have. Notice that.
China on screen now. 3,000 and so on attacks. Tonight, how much the amount of attacks can be tonight? Let's see what can check out over here in Argentina. United States of America on screen now. $15,959 attacks many of them from Spain. Regarding new trends and tendencies regarding new attacks, we got now on screen. The sphere is moving around. We got it now on screen. Check out the ports. 4.5. I'm receiving many attacks from outside into the configure partners, configure attacks this last week. Over the past months, attacks on port 23. I commented on before. We have 5,922 essays. These are the types of attacks made recently. We got it now. Now the provider, ISN, finalizad. Finalizad appears on all statistics. Let's move on to the next point. I will to explain to you the last three latest cases. Let's see if we can get it on screen. We got it now. The very first case, exposed devices. Here they're doing as this. They attack vulnerable equipments from the embedded Linux devices and from SSH exposed systems devices. They distribute the malware. I will show you a sampling. Once installed, they connect with the ASA, constantly sending commands. Over the past years, 95,000 events. As of today, many more. 3,000 and so different IPs detected. There weren't Spain-based routers involved in this process. As we mentioned before, we notified the provider of the current problem for them to sort it out as soon as possible. With IP addresses I obtained from there, I analyzed them all, and I saw that many of them have the port 80 open. You got some sampling from those panels with the by default passwords root, and so on, depending on the device inside. This is a little sampling, but I got over 300 different captures and screenshots. Regarding the sampling, I got for you. We got it now on screen. It is streaming badge that tells you that these download samplings for different and various architectures, and they executed them all constantly. They don't even check out the origin of these architectures. I dump them all, and one of them will get stuck on that. This is the sampling. The second case, by generating gains with great fraud, as of December last year, Amazon was involved. We saw that Amazon equipment's 30-day trial default Amazon equipments, the villains were infecting exposed weak credential services. One, you were vulnerable. You move into catwalks and gateways into advertising areas. Amazon noticed that there's a stopped overnight, but back this summer, this campaign appeared again against Amazon, Google, Soulflower, and Microsoft as well. The very same campaign attacking. You can see the graph now on screen and the flow chart. They proceeded as they did before. This campaign now is not existing. It's gone. Last case. what I call the Asian attack. How would I call an attack or an attacker with SSH services in your root, and when there is inside, you're connected with over 16 IPs with the users and passwords. This is not very common, but it has happened to us. The problem is many of these passwords of these devices belong to the Apple devices and TV with helping which were rooted besides other routers and another remaining devices. You can see IPMAC password as being the most used for Apple devices. This is pretty much it. This is my contact. You get my INCIBE email address, my personal email address. I will be available for you guys on CyberCamp. Should you have any questions, suggestions, don't hesitate to contact me. I will be available. Now let's move on to the round of questions. Should you be interested, please raise your hands. Thank you.
Hola, espectacular.
Great show, spectacular presentation, well done job. I would like to know, do you have a forecast to share this information besides the law enforcement group and military with companies and enterprises? INCIBE started out with the purpose of helping out Spain's companies. If an IP address is sending out many attacks, it should be possible for all the companies to stop that traffic. Let's mess around with these fraudsters by let's share the information. We know the villains share information. There are many more over us. So if we, the good people, share information, we can be stronger than. Yes, we are going to share the information collected from these sensors. Any more questions, please? Hello, thank you very much for your nice talk. I'd like to ask you, as you do a honeypot, the attacker can detect that is on honeypot. Can you do it in the reverse mode and the other way around? Honeypot from your network. Can you put some parameters, some baits that make think the attacker that is not an attacker, but a honeypot? I couldn't hear you. I will repeat the question. As is feasible to reach a honeypot and detect that you are on a honeypot, what do we have? Is visible for us to detect this honeypot? Can we do it the other way around with legitimate equipments within your network to make the attacker think that this attacker accepts a honeypot to deceive the attacker, and the attacker will leave a legitimate equipment by thinking there is another honeypot? I didn't think of that. I didn't come out with the point. Any more questions over there? Sorry, we cannot hear the speaker. Please, there is no microphone in use. Interpreters cannot hear the speaker because there is no microphone in use. Hello, thank you for your nice talk. I would like to ask you, you received so many attacks on a honeypot. There is any specific methodology to discriminate some attacks in the pursuit of researching it, and how was that? This is the very first question. Normally, honeypot of architecture allows much more interaction. We analyze all the organization communication or the layout that the attacker did with this machine. The more interaction you get, the more information you'll obtain. With little interaction, little information. So, but more interaction implies more risks. You said before that it should not be activity on a honeypot. There should not be a lot of traffic on the honeypot. Should it be convenient for us to generate false traffic coming from the workers on the honeypot? We can test it. We can test it. We might have tested it. Thank you. Hello. Where are you? I spotted you upstairs. Good afternoon. The visually very attractive, but shown attacks in real time. Which of them can be analyzed regarding the level of criticality to discern? Level of criticality or criticality to discern which attacks are really critical. We should analyze the information in individual cases to single out the more important ones. The tool cannot analyze the level of criticality. No, it cannot do it, but it should be a proof of concept to do so. Hello. We have came here very late, so I would like to know what tool did you use? How can we access this tool? There is no direct access to this tool. Perhaps I plan to publish it on the hub, but let's see. This will come in time. Any more questions? So, no more questions, so thank you very much for your attention, your time, and happy CyberCamp. Thank you.